Ladies and gentlemen, the Eagle has landed. The Ponderosa is burning down because everything that I have alluded to, everything that I have told you has come to light. What a beautiful evening it is here on Thursday night as Bryce Underwood has officially flipped his commitment from LSU to Michigan. He is now going to be a Michigan Wolverine, the number one player in the country. Let's react to the news. Let's talk about a bit of what I knew and why I was so confident in this recruitment. Let's do it right now.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For the second time today, happy Thursday, and a happy Thursday it is indeed. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm Isaiah Hole. Not going to go through the whole thing. Let's just talk about Bryce Underwood, because there's been a lot of things that I have been talking about that now can kind of come to light. We'll go a little bit through the timeline as to what happened, and we'll also talk about how big of a commitment this is for Michigan. I've got my timeline up in my screen, and we will get to that. But okay, so number one, this is a giant move for Michigan. This is something that Michigan has been working on for a very long time, right? This didn't just start as the season started to go downhill. This was something that they have worked on since I was told somewhere back in the spring. And the Wolverines ended up prevailing. But like I said before, it was very much like a Jim Harbaugh style thing where every kind of little thing had to go right for this to work. Okay. And now suddenly, not only does Michigan for the second time in the last 8 years get the number one player in the country, but it's almost consensus. Rivals, come on, get your stuff together. He's number 2 overall on Rivals, but he's number 1 on every other recruiting service. Obviously, the second 5-star in the class. And this is a shot across the bow, this is a paradigm shift in college football. Because this is going, and I understand he's a guy in the backyard. He's 15 minutes away from Ann Arbor, all of those things. But considering he has been committed to LSU since January 6th, I believe. And I went to their boards last night. They had some nice stuff to say about me. But there was zero doubt that he was going to be signing in the class, right? Because the SEC has long had a stranglehold on elite talent, whether they were from the South or the North. This is a shot across the bow. This is a game changer. This is essentially, and I'm not going to be superstitious about it, but it's kind of like a knock on wood thing, a can't miss prospect. He is the next Trevor Lawrence. I've got Connor Stalions calling me right now to talk about it. This is something that is just unprecedented for Michigan. This is a different era than the Rashawn Gary of it all. When it was basically trying to explain like what the school can do for you, and Michigan got itself into the NIL game. It got itself into a pole position over the last couple weeks with Bryce Underwood, and it's suddenly going to pay off. Now, here's the thing about it. It's going to also have a ripple effect in that it's going to lure other top talent to Ann Arbor, right? This was... we've talked a little bit about like Derek Meadows, and I know that Haywood's name has come out a little bit here since. These are names that I'd been hearing since Sunday that Michigan is wooing and getting having a pretty good chance of flipping from. That's not a guarantee. Meadows is not necessarily tied at the hip with Bryce in the same way, but I think it certainly improves Michigan's chances. I think you'll see some offensive changes. I think you're going to see a lot of people in the transfer portal that you maybe wouldn't have seen before. And I think when you look at 2026, what you're going to start seeing is a bunch of different players suddenly looking at Michigan. And some of it will be NIL plays and such, but there will also be just guys that otherwise weren't going to be looking at Michigan that now will, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. This is going to become a little bit more of a coalition of people who really wanted to do this. So Connor Stalions again, we will get to him momentarily, but not on the show. Speaking of, huge to have him involved. That was part of the turning point, was being able to have Connor Stalions a part of this recruitment.
So the fact that Michigan, they didn't embed him, like I said, this was a Belleville play to kind of make all of these things happen. But nonetheless, this was huge to have him involved, have a guy who knows Michigan, loves Michigan, and he wasn't really actively recruiting Bryce Underwood to Michigan, but he still found a way to deliver. I can't exactly tell you what that's all about, but we will get to more of that, and we will talk about that here in just a moment. All right, we took the call from Connor. It's certainly some victory laps going on. Bryce Underwood is going to be a Wolverine. Obviously, you got to get to signing day, but it's hard to imagine that he is going to flip. Now, there's just there's things coming out. Bryce Underwood posted a 1 minute, 18-second video to his Instagram account confirming the flip. Hometown hero. It's absolutely amazing to see this come to fruition, and huge credit to the boosters that are a part of this, and to Connor Stalions and Jermaine Crowell and Mac Issa and all of the people who had a part of making this happen. There's a lot of names I don't know in here, but it is just an absolute credit to the work that they did to make this happen. And certainly it's instead of it's a dark day for baseball, it is a bright day for football. Let's talk a little bit about what happened, because I know that's part of what you guys want to know, and we talked a little bit already about what could, where this goes from here. I'll explain some of the things. I can't tell you every single part of this, but I will. So I'm going to try not to speak vaguely, but I will tell you how this happened. How did this come to fruition, and kind of make bare some of the code that I've been using over the course of the last several weeks, and why I've been so confident that this was going to happen. All right. So I'm not going to name some names. I'm just going to kind of say people around, or people close to Michigan, people close to Underwood, all that kind of stuff. We're going to protect all that. So Michigan initiated sometime in the off season, and I believe it was somewhere close to spring. I never got an actual answer on that because I didn't ask the question. It's just something that was proffered to me at some point. I got confirmation from Michigan sources that they were quietly pushing for Underwood when there started to be a little bit of buzz around the Illinois game, week 8. So that was the point where I finally decided that I was going to start asking about it. Then you had Sean McGee and Lou Esposito. They went and visited his game against Howell, and they sent wide receiver Andrew Marsh there. And that's when started. This was the day before the Michigan State game, so things started to look a little bit better. Then you had a contingent of people who were Michigan-minded that were close to Belleville, who took the Underwood family, not Bryce Underwood himself, to the Michigan State game. Okay, so that he was there. Not Bryce, but the family were there rather. In the next breath, Connor Stalions got installed as the acting Belleville OC. We know that. I don't have to protect that because we all know that. And then from there, there started to be a little bit of a bond that built between those guys and everything. Like I said before, Connor was not a part of recruiting, but at least, and he wasn't even necessarily a part. It's hard to really explain his role. But absolutely amazing work that he was able to do. There was a lot of talk on LSU boards that I saw that said Michigan was never in contact with him, and that is not what I have heard at all. In the meantime, Michigan was setting up NIL deals and everything. I shouldn't say Michigan, but at least donors were collecting with each other and starting to create the Keep Bryce Underwood Home. There wasn't necessarily a name for it. It was just kind of what it was. And some of them include one of the richest people in the entire world that, to my knowledge, has no connection to Michigan. But that just tells you that the coalition was vast. It was a very big coalition. And there were some glitz and glam things that were kind of happening behind the scenes to kind of show how serious Michigan was throughout this. Obviously there was a goal behind the scenes to get Michigan wants Dotson, right? And they wanted Dotson regardless. If Bryce came, then that was cool, but they wanted Dotson. They had realized that throughout this process. He's a future multi-year starter. We talked about him yesterday, but also that They really wanted to try to get Dotson in to be able to be in his ear. I don't think that you would have, if you would have told me that Dotson would commit one day and Bryce the next day, I wouldn't have believed you, just kind of based off of some of the things that was happening there. I know a lot of people got a lot of hype when Carter Smith decommitted as the Underwood hype started heating up. I didn't really expect that to be a thing per se. Like I didn't think it had any relevance other than that just showed the Smith family that they were going to that they might have to compete with that. So let's see, what else can I read on here? Hailgate sent the massive convoy to Belleville versus Saline. That was strategic. And I know a lot of people thought it was stupid, but he's just a guy in your backyard who's the number one player in the country. And there was certainly he needs to be able to feel the love of Michigan, and Michigan as an institution was showing love, but just, it's like any recruitment, you need to know how much you're wanted and loved and all of that stuff. So it was strategic. And that came from inside the Belleville program, people who were that really wanted that to happen. I guess I shouldn't say inside the Belleville program, kind of around the Belleville program is a better way to state that, just to be honest. Michigan had to be able to survive the LSU weekend without any reaffirmation. The part of the problem with that is, let me read my timeline. Because that was the week before. Michigan managed to survive the weekend. I was told by a source that he left the LSU game early against Alabama. So I think I mentioned that on a podcast before. The 10.5 million number is reported on Wednesday, but it got pushed out more so on Thursday in the Underwoods. Let's just kind of keep that under wraps, but let's just say it became a problem. Thursday night, Underwood posts that he is unlikely to take the Michigan deal. It was a troll. As we had learned through multiple sources, he deleted the post not too long after. And then some of the stuff I can't share until he signs, unfortunately, and we'll get more deep into it. But then there was the revelation, which ended up on the message boards. I didn't really share it here. I just kind of said, pay attention to the weekend, that there was going to be a Sunday meeting that was going to be in the works. But things went south in a hurry, and it didn't seem like things were going very well. The meeting was canceled, and I know there were a lot of people that were on both the LSU side. The LSU side thought it was hilarious. The Michigan side, we just wanted to know what the meeting was, and the meeting didn't end up happening. And then ultimately, Michigan got some good news on Sunday after all of that, and they were able to push forward. I think that's probably the bulk of what I can say about how this recruitment went down. But just rejoice. I'm not going to say it was unexpected, but every step of the way, I was talking to some people that were kind of giving me the daily percents. As I said, with the 60%, I wasn't changing it, but I had people telling me it was close on Sunday. It went from 10% to 75% to 99% in the matter of hours. Okay. Things turned in a hurry, and there's a reason why there was to get amped up about this. I understand there's going to be a lot of people that are still saying like, oh, what's he saying and whatever. I trying to give you as much as I can. When he signs, we'll try to see if I can literally spell it out a little bit more. But we went through the timeline of how all of this played out. This is a huge credit to the people I mentioned. Also, Sharon Moore, Sean McGee, for finding ways to make this work. It was a heck of a recruitment and absolutely amazing work. And like I said, it's a shot over the bow. So what happens next? Because now you're going to get Bryce Underwood in maize and blue. This is why you want to see Michigan in a bowl game. He's not going to be able to play, but we get bowl practices. We get to see Bryce Underwood in maize and blue sooner than later. He's going to be an early enrollee. There's a lot of stuff that we really got to get to. So let's talk about more of this here in just a moment. All right. We're going to keep this short and sweet, but it is absolutely worth it. Like I said, this is a paradigm shift, and this is going to come with the great news of this happening today is that you have just under 2 weeks to be able to get some of these guys that are interested in potentially playing with Bryce Underwood, whether they are committed to LSU or they are committed to another school, for them to kind of get their ducks in a row, for Michigan to get in their ear. Are you a pass catcher who wants to play with Bryce Underwood? Now is your chance. Derek Meadows, if you want to if you got to pick between Michigan and Notre Dame and LSU, buddy. And the guy that you thought you were going to be catching passes from down in Baton Rouge is going to be in Ann Arbor. And so you better find a way to get this, get this rolling. Otherwise, there's Javen Boggs, who is a former Ohio State and Mizzou and UCF, still technically committed to UCF receiver. He's out there certainly probably licking his chops at this point. How does this affect Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng on the defensive side, right? This is going to be a game changer. Right. And we've already talked about Derek Meadows, and we mentioned Ty Haywood. I've been constantly, it's these Wood names, man. What ends up happening is you start to see a ripple effect, and suddenly Michigan's class goes from being pretty good to suddenly being absolutely absurdly good. Like, this is probably going to be the best Michigan recruiting class of all time if all things hold, right? Now suddenly you have someone that can, call Andrew Olesh up. Likely they'll see each other on Saturday. This is the thing, is obviously I was alluding earlier in the week that keep an eye on, see if he's out on the field. That was not conjecture. To be able to have him recruiting, guys that were, maybe looking elsewhere, or guys who were on the fence. They've got 2 weeks to suddenly make up their mind. And certainly Michigan's been in the ear with a lot of these guys, so that's not like a completely new crazy thing. But now suddenly the class can really take off. What it means for on the field, I do still believe Michigan will look at a transfer type to come in and at least they'll set the floor of the room much higher than what it's been, right? That's what I would expect to happen. However, obviously you're going to want to see Bryce Underwood sooner than later. So does he start at the beginning of the year or by the end of the year? Whatever. He's a football junkie, and he's also a very modest kid in a lot of ways, from my understanding. So I don't think he'll have a problem if he's not starting game one. But he wants the opportunity to compete. He needs to learn some things that he doesn't know yet, but he's got all of the raw talent in the world. And it's one of those things that I'm debating if I should say this. I'm gonna ask for forgiveness instead of permission. But like talking to Connor about what he's seen from him, he's like, listen, he's already, from the raw football attributes, is already on par with what JJ McCarthy was by the time that I left Michigan. That's like the caliber of what he's already able to do. He's got all the physical tools. He legitimately is more like fit Cam Newton. There are so many different things that he already has in his arsenal that just zero quarterbacks in Michigan's room right now has. I do believe that they'll go and get that transfer portal guy so that they can set the floor much higher. Yes, they need to bolster the offensive line. They need to get receivers, and there's some of these different things. You still keep the trajectory of the defense and hope it improves from last year for this year to next year, rather. That's going to be hard, losing some of those pieces, but suddenly you just find yourself in a much different position. He is a generational number one guy. He isn't just like a number one guy in a year where there's a lot of quarterbacks. He is a Trevor Lawrence type of guy, where he can probably start in year one. He's already far ahead of everyone from an athletic standpoint, and it's about building out a lot of the base knowledge and coachability and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he is already coachable. I mean being coached and learning what the coaches are giving him. So huge for Michigan. All right. I wanted to do a full 30. We're just going to keep it here. We'll get to this more because obviously we got to digest. There's excitability. I didn't expect this to happen today. I thought this was going to happen probably Sunday. So shocking to me that this happened so quickly. Huge news. We'll talk about it more on Friday, probably instead of Northwestern. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.